we invite guests to come by and get high with us here in Nevada's original Cannabis Lounge. So let's get into it. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the NuWu Sessions Podcast, the only podcast hosted here in Nevada's original cannabis consumption lounge, the Sky High Lounge. Today we have a very special episode. We're going to be talking all things 420 State Fair. I'm sitting here with Miss Jenn T. Welcome to the podcast. Excited to have you here.
Thank you.
Awesome. We want to welcome Mr. James Z to the podcast. How are you doing today, James?
Hey guys, doing good.
Awesome. Excited to have you here. Excited to talk all things 420 State Fair. Before we dive into that, let me just give a little background on our guest here. So Ms. Jenn T is a partner and CEO of CANNect Hospitality, a full spectrum hospitality, events, and concept development company focused on infusing traditional hospitality excellence into the cannabis industry. And then James Z is the co-founder and CEO of Farechild, an all-inclusive event ticketing and marketing platform built to navigate the challenges of today's unconventional event space. Together with NuWu, they're helping shape the vision and execution behind the 420 State Fair, which is going to turn 3 years old this year. Can you guys believe it?
Time is flying.
I know. I can't believe we're here like on year 3. Just really, it feels like it was yesterday is what I'm trying to say. You know, I feel like in the blink of an eye, we're here doing it again, and we're excited to be talking shop and everything like that. But before we get started, I want to give some background on you guys and kind of highlight what got you introduced to the plant. So my question for both of you guys is, what sparked your early interest in cannabis? Ms. Jenn T, if you want to start us off.
I think my early interest in cannabis got sparked originally from other friends who had already been, like, I guess, experimenting with cannabis and kind of turned me onto it. Or I guess, like, I knew about it because other kids at school, I almost want to say, had it, or at least, and I told this story before on a show, the guy that I actually had like a crush on was a stoner at school. And so of course then I was like, well, I want to do what he's doing. And so that was kind of how I first got into it when I was pretty young in like junior high and stuff like that.
There you go. And what about you, James?
Pretty similar. I was kind of a transient kid through like high school. I would sleep on my friends' couches because my parents lived far away from the high school that I wanted to go to. So I remember, you know, we smoked, but we wasn't like, you know, stoner level smokers, but we definitely flipped some cannabis to make a little extra money on the side. And I remember that was kind of my intro into the world a little bit, just, you know, doing the usual little, you know, dime bags, 20 sacks to, you know, make $5 here, $10 there, and, you know, help me pay for lunch in school and stuff like that. But always been a casual smoker still to this day. So yeah, that was probably say high school-ish.
There you go. I think we're all in good company in that regard. I know that's definitely when I got started. So are you guys still regular cannabis consumers?
I am, yes.
And what about you, James?
Yep.
We daily users?
I'm an evening user.
And today, what about you, Jenn?
I like to rip a doobie pretty much all day. I like to keep my cannabinoid levels at max.
I feel that game. I'm on year 10 in the industry, and I was just saying this on our last podcast where I was like, man, I've been smoking a lot of joints for a lot of years. You know what I mean? It's about the time where I'm like, you know what? Edibles sound nice, or maybe a dry herb vape, but you know, what's a typical session look like for you guys? James, if you want to start us off.
Well, I use it, you know, primarily in the evening, like I said, to kind of wind down, to kind of turn my brain off, because, you know, doing what we do, it's a lot of constant thinking and, you know, million, you know, balls in the air all the time. So it's kind of my nice way to kind of like shut down and turn off. Usually an edible or you know, I have a vape that I like to use. It's an oil vape, but that's kind of, you know, my direction right now. It's just kind of a nice nightly routine. I just, you know, 10, 11 o'clock, I start, you know, consuming. And then by, you know, 11, 12 o'clock, I'm knocked out with a nice peaceful night's sleep.
There you go. A nice little nightcap. That's a good way to do it. And what about you, Ms. Jenn?
I like to crack a doobie first thing in the morning, pop my eyes open, crack a doobie, set the tone for the day the right way. So for me, it's kind of an all day event, if I'm being honest.
There you go. There you go. I know that game.
I celebrate all day.
Yeah, I've been doing breakfast dabs and breakfast joints for years. That's why like recently I've transitioned more to like the dry herb vape and some edibles and things like that. But yeah, all day, every day, at least like my 3 square meals a day, you know. But how did you guys first get into the cannabis and events industry, Ms. Jenn, if you want to start us off?
Oh, well, I get to give a cool shout out to our co-featured guest here today. So I lived in Amsterdam for a little while. And when I came back from Amsterdam, I knew that I wanted to kind of change up my life. I had been in the traditional hospitality in a nightclub and food and beverage industry for a very long time. And I came back from Amsterdam and I just kind of started saying, like, I'm interested in this new industry that's coming to Las Vegas. And one of my friends was business partners with James and Dave Tran. And he said to them, hey, I got this girl. She's looking for a job in the industry. Maybe you guys can meet. And when we did, it all really worked out great. And I ended up getting my first job in the industry with Dope Magazine, the best cannabis publication ever. And I was very fortunate to get to work with these guys. So they were like my mentors in the industry, honestly. And that was kind of how I got started. And now it's obviously years later and we're getting to work together in new ways and more exciting ways now too.
That's exciting. Sounds like a very full circle moment. What about you, James?
Yeah, so it was 2011. We launched Dope Magazine, and that was, pretty much my foray into cannabis, because before that, like I said, a casual user, wasn't really like in the industry. In Washington State, we obviously legalized in 2012 along with Colorado. And we, at that moment, in 2011, we were kind of seeing the tidal wave coming our way. So I was a magazine producer at the time. I was doing a different magazine. I was more kind of nightlife, fashion, bar, restaurant sort of vibe. And, my partner, Dave, was, dabbling into the cannabis industry. And he was like, hey, there's no real like local publications for cannabis. And maybe you could take your magazine skills that you've been doing for the last, 5, 6, 7 years and bring it over to cannabis, because he was looking to open up a dispensary. And he didn't have a place to advertise, because at the time, newspapers and other rags were not accepting cannabis advertising at all. It was like a zero tolerance policies. And, again, this is back in 2011. So I said, all right, well, let's create it. So we basically launched a magazine within, I think I put it together in like 3 months. We had the first issue out of Dope Magazine in Washington State, and we had the mayor of Seattle on the cover, which was pretty crazy because he was a pro-cannabis, politician. So we were very excited to have him on there, and that kind of started this big tidal wave of press and coverage, because having the mayor on the cover was kind of a big deal. And we kind of took it from there and just kind of rode that wave all the way into running the magazine for 9 years and opening up 11 different states and 100,000 publications across the nation and stuff. So that was kind of my just jump right into the deep end cannabis story, and there wasn't really much before that, but haven't stopped since.
Sounds like it, but good on you being here, all these years later and kind of being an OG and spearheading the movement, right? I know as long as I've been in it, it takes people that have passion and dedication to kind of move these things forward, and I don't. I feel that is welcome here in this circle. So yeah, guys. Well, this is probably a good time now that we've talked about our backgrounds beforehand, maybe to get a table package here and start smoking some weed.
Let's do it.
James, this is our first remote episode ever, so I smoke them if you got them, bud. We can pass it through the screen here, but I do have my man Harold here ready to bring us a table package. This is one of our platinum high roller table packages. We got all types of goodies, and let's see what we got. What's going on, Harold?
Hello.
Hi, Harold.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
Here's your goodies.
Thank you very much, sir. Much appreciated. So it looks like on this one, we've got an eighth of some Stizzy. We've got a couple Rove ice packs, and we got some nitro dabs here. Miss Jen, how would you like to start us off here today?
I think I will do one of these pre-rolls.
Beautiful. Makes it nice Rove. And easy, right? Absolutely. We haven't... I was trying to give Rove some recognition here. I know since we've had them on the podcast left, they definitely went live with these ice packs, which are like, I think they call them triple infused. I know they got the live resin, they got the hash on there. This one right here is their peaches and cream. Looks like 42.2% THC, a nice caryophyllene, linalool, and humulene profile here. So,
oh, look at it. It's like covered in...
Oh, yeah.
Keef.
That's a pretty looking joint.
Show all the folks at home.
Yeah. For the viewers at home, definitely, if you haven't tried the Rove ice packs, these things look good. It smells like peaches, and that's awesome. I'm here for that.
Wow, it really does.
Ms. Jen, I got a Sky High Lounge lighter here for you as well.
Thank you.
We'll spark this up and
cheers.
Let's get her going. So, as I spark this doobie, my first question here, James, if you want to kick us off, is what is the origin story behind how your company came together?
Well, Farechild kind of was, our second, iteration of our cannabis business life. And, it started with Dope Magazine, which ran from 2011 until we sold it to High Times in 2018, I believe was the year. So about 8 years we ran the magazine, and at the time when we were, moving on, after we did the sale and it was time for us to go, we were sitting in my office thinking about what's next, for me and Dave. And obviously our background was in hospitality and nightlife. Dave and I have owned bars and nightclubs in the past, and still currently there's a couple in the portfolio. But it was always something that we loved. The passion for live events and for hospitality in general was always our calling card, and something that he and I both knew we were really good at. And we play a really good yin and yang with each other, as far as he's a great front man, and kind of can go out there and kiss the babies and get the crowd hyped up, and I'm the back end kind of operations and making sure everything is running as it should. And so we decided let's take our favorite part of what we were doing for the last 8 years at Dope, which was producing these events, because we did a lot of events with Dope. We did Dope Cups and Dope Industry Awards and bud tender events, and you name it, all kinds of stuff, hundreds of events across the country. And we decided to just laser focus in on the event space, because we felt like there was a lot of need for kind of a professional event production company in the space. There's a lot of people that kind of just throw things up, and little heady events here and there, and pop-up things here and there, but there wasn't like a company that really kind of took it as seriously as, like, let's say, like the bar and nightclub industry takes events, the festivals and all the things that we see that they get to enjoy. How come we can't have a quality level event like that? So that was kind of the catalyst, was just kind of filling a need and looking at it like something that we love to do. And we took our passion and applied it to this, and started Farechild Events.
Beautiful story. Thank you for sharing. Ms. Jenn, what about you?
Well, I was going to say, I think the reason that CANNect and Farechild work so well together is because we both have that exact same ethos, in that we like to produce high-level production events, fully compliant and checking all of the boxes. And like James said, not just tossing up a party, which those are also great. We love the tossed up parties, but we wanted to offer the industry a different product and a different style of event. Like James said, something that feels like a more traditional event that you would go to, but you can also smoke cannabis at it. That's also why we love working with NuWu, because you guys have the best place to do these types of events.
Thank you very much. We've been, at it for a long time, kind of testing the model. But I mean, that's what we learned when we first opened the Vegas Taste Room in 2019 was, man, we need more space. You know what I mean? And, I'm glad our interests all align here, so we can be, building bigger and better events. So excited to, dive in all things 420 State Fair. But before we do that, I do want to ask you, while we're talking about with the launch of your brands and everything like that, what gap in the market specifically were you like trying to address, or what did you see that made you feel like you could do it better when you were first founding?
Well, for CANNect, I'll say that we specifically came together as a group, and I scouted out the partners that I do have. We launched in 2018, and it's myself, and then I have a business partner who is our CFO and legal attorney. And then we also have a director of operations. His name's Andrew Muir, and he is, and my other partner's name is Aaron Sofer. Andrew is a compliance wizard. So we feel like fun parties, creative things, and entertainment is our strong suit, but CANNect specifically, our thing that the niche that we fill in the market is that we also back it up with compliance. And so we can craft SOPs for everything from a house party to a large scale festival to an actual consumption lounge venue. And because of our backgrounds in nightlife and hospitality, we can also make it super fun and interesting and look cool, and at the same time also be compliant. So for CANNect specifically, that's kind of the niche that we fill.
100%. And what about you, James?
Yeah, I mean, it's similar in the sense that, kind of going back to the original question was, filling a gap of just high quality events, compliant, of course, that we can, produce on the scale that we kind of, almost, it's like creating an event that we would want to go to, right? That's kind of the way I look at it. I think in my mind, it's, even though, like Jen said, we love the kind of, pop-up events and the, just the kind of get-togethers and stuff are cool. But I think for us, it's, I always love going to an event that's well curated and well executed, from the minute you get to the front door where you register, and it's a tight round ship, and, your name's where it's supposed to be, and your ticket works and everything is good. And, all the way to the, when you leave, people are saying goodbye and thank you for coming. And those are like the little things that, I think sometimes get overlooked when it comes to, just kind of the more pop-up type events. But I think, at the end of the day, it's just, how do we make our industry feel as, like, I guess, legit as any other industry when it comes to, doing an award show or doing a, festival or whatever. It's like, how come we can't have that? It's like, I can go to a beer garden or beer festival, and they, it's well done and it's regulated and they got permits and they have all the things. And for us, it's always about, why can't we have that as an industry? So, our big call was just trying to push that forward and just making sure that, the cannabis consumer has a place they can go to that feels just as legit and cool as any other type of industry.
100%. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I know that's what we're here at NuWu always thinking too, is like, again, this exists on the other side of the fence here, but like, what can we really be doing to try to make it like legit and feel official? Because it is, obviously we're in new turf, the compliance is, no joke. And in your guys' experience, having done this for a while now, what would you say cannabis hospitality actually looks like in practice? Would you say it's more about the compliance, or would you say it's more about, like you're saying, being a well-run ship and making sure the events are executed quickly, or something different?
I think it's a mix of both. And I think something I've said in the past is that, and this could be said for any industry that's not an event production industry. I think that in cannabis, you have retail, you have cultivation, you have production, you have a lot of interested parties who want to maybe produce an event or open a lounge or do something that is more of a hospitality focus, but they don't necessarily have experience interacting with guests. So I feel like it's truly infusing experience of guest interactions in a service-based setting, which is obviously different than a retail setting or a sales setting. You're crafting a night-long experience. Like James said, it's everything from the moment you walk in the door to making sure that they get home safe. So it's kind of a mix of everything, in my opinion. It's just taking it from, we've now you've sold you cannabis to now you are going to consume it in front of us.
Right. 100%. Anything you want to add to that, James?
No, I think Jen nailed it. Yeah, there's, again, just kind of making a level playing field with everyone else. I can go to a bar and have a cocktail and have a good time. And, that service and level is the same thing we want to have for cannabis.
100%. Well, you guys both have a very extensive, background in events. So what would you say is the most chaotic event moment you've ever had to solve? James, if you want to start us off.
I was trying to think about that because there's so many. I think we're all sort of masochists at the end of the day in the event industry because there's just something to be said about, what can go wrong will go wrong sort of, mindset, because that really is kind of the truth. But, what we do good and, what we learn over the years and, why it takes a little bit of seasoning to get to the level that we're at is just knowing how to sort of troubleshoot, right? I mean, I think you're really just kind of playing, fireman the whole time, making sure that you can put out fires as quick as possible when they arise. And that's really where the skill set comes, right? Because at the end of the day, we're not doing brain surgery or, like taking rocket ships to the moon, but we're creating events that are well thought out. But really the hard part is just making sure that you're thinking about every intangible thing that could happen that you just don't, a lot of people that don't have the experience don't think about, so it's just one of those things where you're always just kind of cross-checking everything. But, an experience, I guess, couple top of mind. And these were kind of early in the days, right? Because in Washington State where we started, there was no event permits, there was no, lounge licenses, there was no way to like compliantly consume on site. So what we had to do is kind of play within this gray area, which was, hey, everyone needs to be 21. It needs to be a private event, right? It can't be any, public view of smoking happening or anything like that. So we said, okay, well, if you guys aren't going to, issue like a legit way to do this, we're just going to kind of, look at the rules and the laws and play within those guidelines because, again, what can you do? So I remember one time we were throwing one of our dope cups, which, typically has 2,000 plus people show up to it. And this is again back in like 2012, 2013. So very early on. This is before, like big fancy, like brands and stuff were out there. This is still very mom and pops, sort of stuff going on. And we were setting up our event at this venue as a private venue. So, we weren't doing anywhere public. We weren't selling tickets. It was free and all the, checked all the boxes, check. And we get there and literally it was 2 days before the event. So we're doing a walkthrough. And then some local like city regulators show up, and I guess there was in the city we were doing it, which wasn't in Seattle, it was a city called Tequila. There was a moratorium against any kind of cannabis, any dispensaries or anything like that. So we found out like real quick. They said, "Hey, you can't have your event here," and we're just like, "Well, why? It's private." Da, da, da. And they start pulling out all this stuff. So literally, we had to move a 2,000 person event in 2 days to a new venue, and basically, craft it from the ground up because the venue was completely different. The setup was completely different. We're in a different city and all that stuff. So that's just one of many, many, many examples of just kind of what can go wrong will go wrong. And, just being able to pivot and make changes on the fly as best as humanly possible.
Yeah, it's the name of the game, like you said, right? Firefighters. That's the nature of the beast with events, though. What about you, Ms. Jenn?
Yep.
Okay, I'm just going to say, all the locals will know what I'm talking about, but I'm just going to say a couple words here, and that is nice and toasty, I think was one of my biggest L's, which was just really all about the weather report, and you got to really stay close to that weather report when you're planning events. Yeah. Because sometimes you lose quite a few deposits when you're not sure how windy it's going to be on a certain day, if you know what I'm saying.
Not wrong there. Well, what do you think has been some of the biggest changes you've noticed from cannabis consumers over just the past 3 to 5 years? Starting with you, Ms. Jenn.
I think the cannabis consumers are getting more educated about what they're actually consuming, and maybe they're getting more specific about the things that they want, even if it's just which product types, I think we're getting slowly away from what's the highest THC era. And while I do think to some consumers that's still important, I like seeing the education of the average consumer, that they're learning more about terpenes and what's actually in the products that they're consuming, and kind of that they can make a combination that doesn't necessarily rely solely on whether it's 30-something% THC or not. So I'm liking seeing a lot of that.
100%. Education is everything at the end of the day, right? What about you, Mr. James?
Yeah, I think that's probably it. I don't think there's, everyone that loves cannabis, loves cannabis. But yeah, I think there's just so many cool ways to consume now. And there's this, I love seeing all the innovation when it comes to, the vaping devices and, just like cool ways to just consume that you just never imagined, 20 years ago that you'd be, like drinking a dab, it's like just crazy stuff like that. So right. I like that a lot, because I think, again, it kind of adds a little bit of class and sophistication. And, not saying that like smoking a joint's not classy or ripping a bong's not classy, but there's, there are some, I think, consumers that were a little bit afraid of the traditional ways of smoking. And now that we've kind of introduced, like the microdosing or the edibles or the drinks or the, these cool new like ways to take, vapes and stuff like that, I think it opens up the doors to, I know the term soccer mom is used way too much in this industry, but when we were kind of doing this in the, the 2011-12s, like everyone that we introduced them to like a vape pen for the first time, and especially the flavored ones, and I hate to say it because I know those aren't really like that great for you, but it's like giving them a strawberry vape pen and, seeing these, 30, 40-year-old people trying it for the first time, and there's like, wow, and just like blew their mind. They're like, oh, I don't have to like smell like weed, I don't have to, rip, walk around the giant bong, and it just kind of brought this new sort of, I guess, group of people into the cannabis industry that weren't there before, just because of the way that we traditionally consumed wasn't their vibe,
100%. Yeah, you gotta meet people where they're at. All right, and I think that's what leads to the innovation we're talking about when we're talking about the progressions in edible technology, vaporizer technology. It's not everyone's going to be comfortable ripping a dab on an e-rig or on a quartz nail, or they're just gonna be scared of the torch or whatever. So what can you do to meet them where they're at, make sure everyone's comfortable, because that's what's really gonna keep moving the needle forward, right? But we touched on compliance a little bit earlier, but how do you go about creating elevated experiences that are unique and out of the box while also being cognizant of compliance?
There are a lot of times that we come up with a really fun, cool idea that we just can't do.
Right.
I actually, one of my first clients here in Nevada, we used to have a saying, if it's fun, the state will say no. So that was back when we had to like submit every single thing to the state and then actually wait for approvals. And I think that just kind of trained us in general to know what not to do for, marketing outreach or certain things that we want to do that may not be seen as compliant. We just avoid altogether. So I'd say that, like, just coming up with really cool stuff and then going, ooh, I don't know if that's gonna pass. And it could be anything from like, I don't know. I mean, even we have conversations daily where I'm tossing out ideas, or James will toss out an idea and I'll say, oh, I got to ask Aaron. That's our attorney. I'll say, we've got to see if he thinks that is childlike, or if he thinks that might be outside of compliance. So it's a lot of just getting the attorney to say yes. I try to do nothing without my attorney saying, okay.
I mean, that's a smart way to do it, right? What about you, James?
Yeah, I mean Jen's the master of that world, and we obviously work together a lot, and I lean on her for that, especially in Nevada where she's knows as much as anybody about compliance out there. So yeah, I mean, I think we just align ourselves with people and regulation experts in the different states, especially when we were doing the dope events in the early days. Every state was different, right? You go to Nevada's one rules, California's another rules, Colorado's another rule, Washington and Oregon, and everywhere you went was just like you had to kind of like learn all the regulations of each different state. So it really is just just paying attention to what's going on, and really just kind of having those people in place, like Jen said, her lawyer friends that can jump in and really help and take that help. Don't just think everything and just, I'm going to throw an event, because trust me, I've seen many events that get shut down because they just don't take the time to, check the boxes and do it the right way.
That's a good way to put it. I know I can think of a few off the top, but we're not naming names. That's not what we're doing here. Let's start pivoting into talking about the 420 State Fair. Like we said at the top, we're going to be doing the third annual this year. But let's hear from you guys from the jump. What do you think, especially for the viewers at home who might not have attended a 420 State Fair, but what do you think sets the 420 State Fair apart from other 420 celebrations?
I would say what sets the 420 State Fair apart from other 420 celebrations is the experience that we build and what we curate. So it is more of a carnival, adult circus. We really try to make it feel like you are transported to another world. And I think that's what makes it feel really magical, is that we really tie together all of the elements in a cohesive way. So it feels like a circus and or carnival. And we play with the theme each year. So you're not going to see the same ride every year. You're not going to see the same games every year, but you're going to walk in and feel like, oh, this is the 420 State Fair. It looks very cohesive. And I think that's one of the things that makes it feel so magical, is that it has a lot of elements that we put together. Like we curate it very well to have the programming between acrobats and contortionists and performers and the carnival food that we have. I mean, it's like each piece of those really makes it feel like a fair or carnival kind of environment.
I couldn't agree more. That's, part of that execution, like we were saying earlier. What about you, James?
Yeah, I think it's really about just bringing something new to the equation. And there's been plenty of different events and festivals, that we've produced or others have produced. And, Jen and I are obviously very lean, very creative brain, the way we think. And, it's just working with a venue like NuWu, it lends an opportunity for like this nice blank canvas. That's something that we enjoy, because it's kind of now we just get out our paintbrushes and paint something cool on top of it, which I think Jen and I are pretty good at. And I think the State Fair, it kind of just organically happened because I think it was when we first started, 420 landed on a Saturday, and it just was one of those like perfect storms of like, okay, we got to do something. I hadn't done a 420 event for a couple of years because we used to do our Dope Cup in Washington on around 420 every year. And so, once we left Dope, we didn't have that. We were kind of missing that key event for 420. And so, it just made sense. And, with NuWu being there and just being the kind of the perfect place to produce an event like this, it made it easy. Then all we had to do is kind of come in and put our creative hats on and come up with a cool theme and concept. And I think the State Fair is fun because like Jen said, you can mold it a lot of different ways. It's not just like a same thing every year, cookie cutter. All right, here we go. Because every year we try to, add new elements or, make a new experience. So it feels different every time, but the ethos of the State Fair is always there. So, there's a few new things we're doing this year that we're bringing that we haven't done in years past that continue that, kind of tradition of keeping it fresh and keeping it exciting year after year.
100%. I think you guys are doing a great job. We definitely designed NuWu with intent to be that blank canvas, as you described. We try to to lead in the cannabis event space, obviously we're fortunate because of the way we operate to be, early to that conversation, but we want to make sure we have something that can be molded and fit any event so that they can all feel special and unique. So you guys kind of touched on this too here, but obviously you guys have been doing it a while. We've had a lot of conversations back and forth, but how do you guys work together, specifically Farechild and CANNect, to balance both spectacle, safety, and guest comfort? If you want to start us off there, Mr. James.
Yeah, well, obviously NuWu does a lot of the lift for us because they have a great staff and a great, security team, and they definitely know how to, run a great event out there. So I think just, working in, accordance with how things are already going there, it makes our lives easier because, there's not too much on that side. But for us, it's really just about being just cognizant of like the little things, like having water stations available, right? So there's free water when someone can just grab some water if they're feeling, a certain way. And, just making sure that we have teams out there constantly just keeping an eye on how things are going. And, Jen and I probably take 100,000 steps on those days that we produce those events because we're just constantly cycling around and checking on things and making sure everything's on the up and up. And we like to hire people that work with us that have the same sort of mindset of making sure the customers are taken care of and having a good time. And and again, that goes from just the simple things of saying hello and smiling to the safety and security issues of just making sure that everything is compliant and everyone's there's not overindulgence, and like Jen said, that having rideshare available if we need to have that and everything else. So yeah, it's just those little touches that again, it's not rocket science, but it's just thinking about them ahead of time and not foregoing them because you're lazy or you're trying to save money or whatever. Just putting your full energy into that as much as the fun creative stuff that we all love to do, but thinking about both sides of it is important.
100%. As they say, the devil's in the details, right? What about you, Ms. Jen?
Will you hit me with the original cue on this one more time?
No, you're totally fine. I said, how do Farechild and CANNect work together to balance spectacle, safety, and guest comfort?
Oh, okay. So it's actually really fun working with Farechild because we're both crazy and come up with insane ideas and then have to kind of scale it back from the craziness. So typically how it kind of goes is we know the base of what we want to do with the fair, and then we kind of brainstorm, and James and I will really get together and kind of see what do we want to do this year? How do we want to create the spectacle of this year? And like he said, the rest is running the checklist and making sure that we have all the pieces that make the guest safety at the core, having fun, having a good time while you're there, getting home safe. Those are and then hopefully telling a friend that you had a good time. That's the 4 things we're trying to accomplish with every party. And like I said, I love working with the Farechild guys because they're just as crazy as I am with coming up with ideas. And really the only limitation is sponsorship dollars. So anyone who's interested in sponsoring, please visit 420statefair.com to secure your sponsorship now.
Man, shameless plug. That was great. Well executed too. Absolutely. So what do you guys think makes an event truly unforgettable?
How you feel when you leave. I mean, the programming and what went on at the party can be a million different things, but how you feel when you leave, I think is the best thing I can say, because I know even when I leave the fair at the end of the night, I'm smiling ear to ear. I feel like I just went to a real music festival or a real experience. And that's, I think, the best part is that end of the night where you're just still giddy and you just still feeling it. And you just kind of got a buzz of energy about you. I think that's the goal. And that's what's the best part of any party, how you feel at the end of the night.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. What about you, James?
Yeah, and I think there's the proof of doing a well-produced event is just, how many people come back the next year after year, right? How many, customers and guests and sponsors and, you name it, right? Everyone, it's funny because Jen and I are always all right, we'll start thinking about next year, a little bit down the road because, we're always pretty burnt out by the end of it because, we're grinding this event out for months and months and months. But it's funny because right after it's over, we start getting messages about, hey, so next year. So what are we doing next year? We're just oh boy, here we go. So I mean, that's, kind of just the proof of what we do is, good. And I think, the reaction from the community and, people buying tickets right away when they go on sale and, people messaging us before they're even on sale, where can I get tickets? Those are good. those are the feel good things that make us, smile, because we know that they had such a good time the year before that they're ready to come back already. And, the event's not even for, 2 more months. So that's definitely a feel good for us.
100%. I totally feel that burnout after an event, having done 5 NuWu Cups, you know what I mean? You definitely, we have those conversations on the NuWu marketing team. We're like, okay, I know it's fresh in our minds. We want to have like big brainstorming sessions, just like write this down and talk about it in 2 weeks so we can all decompress a little bit. But I do think you're right. It's, if they're coming back, that means you're growing, you're scaling accordingly. And that's the goal for anything, right? But what role do you guys think that technology places in experiential cannabis?
What do you think, Jay-Z?
I think it's important, but I don't think it's as important as maybe in other industries. I think the human connection is really what brings the cannabis consumer out to events. I think we live in such a tech heavy world where we're constantly being just throwing, data and digital stuff and, screen time and all this stuff like constantly. I think it's honestly kind of nice to go to an event where you can kind of put your phone down, and just enjoy yourself and hang out with people, and have that human connection again. I think that's, why events are so important to the cannabis industry, is because cannabis was made, it was not made, but it's popular because that, it's a very group sort of thing, right? You want to sit down with your friends and share a joint. You want to, lay on the beach and smoke a doob. And, it's just part of the kind of the nature of cannabis is being around people and connecting with people and laughing and telling stories and, eating good food and that kind of stuff. And I think that's really what it's about. So while technology is good for certain aspects, obviously, registration and selling tickets and marketing and all that kind of stuff is very tech forward. We're very, ingrained in the social media world like you have to be nowadays. But I think honestly, like without live events, like a lot of brands that really just kind of spend all their marketing dollars on, putting out, content and all this kind of stuff, that's cool. But really connecting with your customer in person and having that face-to-face where you can shake their hand and talk about your product and show them what you're doing and meet the growers and see the product up close in hand and versus looking at it on your phone. I think that's so important. I think a lot of brands that really have embraced that as part of their marketing strategies are seeing more success than the people that are just like living on social and trying to just, do everything through the tech world where, again, it's going to get worse, right? With AI and everything coming down the pike, we're all just kind of like, oh boy. So I think, yes, tech's important, but I think at the same time, we don't want to lose that human connection. That really is what cannabis is all about to start with.
Well put. I think, it's definitely something that is about human connection. I can't agree with you more. Some of the best conversations I ever had were over a doobie with some of my homies, you know what I mean? But, all right. So how do you guys think that cannabis events are going to change over the next couple of years?
Ooh la la.
Loaded, right?
Well, it's hard to say. I think it's too soon to tell because there is always new legislation coming out. Obviously, there's a lot of talk upstairs about what's going on with cannabis, and until I think more things are hammered out there, potentially there could be changes coming. I just hope things get bigger and better, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to well, actually, I'll say this. I'm looking forward to NuWu's expansion. When I just looked outside and I thought, man, I can't wait till we have like 50 rides out there.
100%, yeah. I mean, we're just barely getting started. It's definitely a long-term play, but yeah.
So yeah, for me, that's it. Things to get bigger, better. Hopefully, hemp gets a little more fine-tuned at a national level and we get more answers there. So that hemp products can kind of participate or not participate or however that goes. But yeah, for me, I just want to throw bigger parties, have more stuff, and have more fun.
There you go. Good goals to have. What about you, James?
Yeah, I think it's kind of sad that, our industry, we live and die by the, powers that be, decisions that get made. But, it is what it is. We just got to kind of ride with it. But yeah, like Jen said, if let's just say federal legalization walls come crumbling down and things change on that level, what does that mean for us? Does that mean new players enter the space? Does that mean, more mainstream sponsorships can come into events? There's so many interesting ways to kind of look at what that could mean for cannabis and, especially the event space. Because again, it's, we live in the, our whole industry is controlled by regulations and what we can and can't do, right? It's not as easy as other industries. So I guess, as those regulations change and as things, are put into new laws and codes and stuff, that we can then use those new laws and codes to kind of think of new things that we can do. And that's exciting, because I think, like Jen said, bigger and better is easy for us to do, but we just can't, because we're restricted by certain aspects that other industries aren't. So as soon as those restrictions start coming down, then you'll see more from us, especially.
100%. Just barely getting started, right?
Absolutely.
Good way to be. Good way to be. So the big question that I'm sure anyone's asking, or anyone who's watching this podcast is probably waiting for me to ask, is what can guests expect from the 2026 version of the 420 State Fair?
Ooh, okay. So like James said, there are some changes. I'm going to let James talk about one part of it, but we are going to have new and different performances this year from the roaming entertainers. We're going to be getting a big top instead of a midway this year. We're getting a big top tent that we're going to have some different specialty acts and things happening in, and some different games for this year than the same games that you guys have seen the last couple years. We're going to have different experiential activities and activations. I don't want to say too much because we want to surprise everybody, but things are going to be different this year. There is one part of the activation, though, or one part of the fair that I want James to talk about, which is the green ribbon experience. And that is something new that we're adding for 2026 that we think brands and guests alike are going to be very excited about. So, James, will you tell the folks at home about that?
Sure. Yeah. So, just quick back in the day story, when we did our Dope Cup back in 2012 or 2013, first one ever in Portland, we did this, we created this thing called the Judges Kit, where people got to get some samples of flower when they got to the event, and they tried it, and then they voted on site for who they thought was the best flower from the little, sample kit that they got. And, there were such great reviews about that, and it was really fun, because what they got to do was they got to kind of see the flower up close. They got to try it. They got to look at these beautiful kind of beauty nugs of each strain. They got to meet the people, the growers, the farmers that were making it. They got to talk to them about it. Learn all the history of what they do and how they do it. And it was really cool, because it kind of brought this state fair sort of the pumpkin contest or the best pig contest or whatever it is, right, to this year, because we thought that there's always a missing component of the state fair, which was the usual thing, which you have that kind of blue ribbon sort of part of every big state fair that you go to. And we thought it'd be cool to bring that to our event, because that is such a big part of any state fair. So we obviously call it the green ribbon to keep it in line with the cannabis space. But
and it's
so we're gonna have
just flower?
Yeah, flower only. Flower or
just
pre-rolls.
Flower.
But yeah, it'll be half-gram pre-rolls that the guests will be able to taste in that kit. So any other products can go in the VIP bags, but if you want to enter the flower contest, it's flower only.
Gotcha. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about I guess a blue ribbon aesthetic. You know what I mean? I do think they go hand in hand with a fair. So I think that is a brilliant idea, and I'm really excited to see what guests think of that, because I think that's going to be a cool way to kind of expand on the events in years to come. Hopefully it'll be a hitter. I know I want to try it. Let's go. I'm a sucker for a good blind cannabis competition, like I said. But well, this is all very exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing how we can do 420 State Fair bigger and better this year. Again, we don't want to give too much away, but definitely expect more. Where can they find more information for updates regarding the 420 State Fair, Jen?
So I want to just add one more thing really quick, which is we are also scouting acts, talent, performers, people who want to be an actual part of the 420 State Fair. We're also tossing around the idea of adding a talent show. So anybody who's interested in either purchasing a ticket, sponsoring the event, or maybe performing or being a part of the fair, they can visit 420statefair.com, and it's the digits 420statefair.com, or they can follow us at 420 State Fair on Instagram, and we'll post updates there, and they can also get information on all the packages that are available, what's included in each ticket, and how to enter the contest and all of that.
Absolutely. Well, it's a good plug. We'll make sure that we have the link to the website here in the description of this video so that our guests can figure out how they can secure their tickets or make submissions. Any other things that we want to plug about the State Fair before we start wrapping this up? We got to get this Cannabis Lounge here open here soon, but anything else would you like our guests to know about what to expect from the 420 State Fair this year?
I would just say, come on out. We're excited to see you again, or hopefully it's your first time. We'd love to see you. Obviously, a lot of people from out of town in the Vegas market, so we embrace having, people especially come from states that can't have these kind of events. I love it. I love seeing those people, whose minds are blown when they walk in and they're just like, this is real, so yeah, come on out. It'll be a good time. Jen and I put a lot of energy into it, and we think it'll be one of your most memorable 420 experiences this year for sure.
Looking forward to it. Ms. Jen, anything for you?
I think James said it all. We can't wait to see everybody. It's going to be the best one yet.
I do think, just to piggyback on what you said, James, it was cool. I mean, last year being on the grounds of the event, I know we interviewed some of them, like people that were out of market, people that were just, in Vegas doing Vegas things, looking for something to do. Maybe they're cannabis consumers or not, but it was cool to just see that reaction from people from Ohio, the Midwest, some of these newer markets coming up, just being in Vegas, and they're like, I saw this as a thing and I couldn't not be here, or people flying out just to experience it. So I think it's a testament to you guys' hard work into making a thorough and well executed event, and again, excited to see how we do it even bigger and better this year. So again, make sure you guys check out 420statefair.com for more information, secure your tickets, submit to perform. You said talent show, and now I'm very excited. But just one more question that we always ask every guest on our podcast here. But what advice would you give to someone who's interested in launching a cannabis events brand or something in your niche?
I would just say get an attorney as your business partner.
There you go. That's the secret sauce, the cheat code right there. Right?
Yes. Thank you, Aaron.
That's a good way to put it. What about you, James?
Surround yourself with people that are like-minded and have the same passion that you have for starting a business, and work with other venues and vendors that are good people that take things seriously and want to do it the right way, and don't take shortcuts. That's my biggest advice. Just do it the right way the first time and every time, and you'll be good.
There you go. Good advice. Well, thank you guys very much for being on the podcast. This has been a great one. Thank you guys for watching on NuWu Sessions Podcast. Again, one more time, make sure you check out 420statefair.com for any and all updates. We can also see more information on nuwu.vegas/news, and follow everyone on Instagram. Let's see here. Farechild is at the Farechild. CANNect at CANNect Hospitality. Also at 420 State Fair. And make sure you tap in with all the NuWu handles at NuWu LV, Sky High LV. There's a laundry list. It'll all be in the description. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you, James, Jen, for being on the podcast. This has been a good one.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Tom.
guys. Absolutely. Thanks for being on.
Jay-Z. Thanks, guys.
I also love the nickname Jay-Z. I'm gonna call you that from now on. Is that cool? Am I in the club now after the podcast, the Jay-Z Club? I wish I would have known beforehand.
We're good, Tom. We're good.
Awesome. Thank you guys for being a part of it. Thank you guys for watching. This is NuWu Sessions. We out.